Welcome everybody. Hope everybody's hanging in there. I had a little scare yesterday. My wife was having symptoms day before yesterday, actually, and had a fever, loss of taste, and whatnot. And unfortunately, I had to go in to get tested. And the good news is she came back negative. So good news there. I probably have about 6 patients that are positive at this point, and working through their illnesses. Nobody's been admitted, knock on wood. Let me just make sure I got everybody on board here. Good. Looks like we got about 52 people on board. That's great. So my apologies for this getting screwed up. I didn't realize I had to admit you guys into the meeting. I thought it was an automatic deal. So anyhow, I wanted to update everybody on current numbers. Worldwide, we've got 922,000 cases, so we're approaching 1 million people. About half of them are in Europe, a quarter of them are here in the United States. And then, of course, we've got Asia and Africa that are contributing to the rest of those. Here in Colorado, we have close to 3,000 cases now. 509 hospitalized, 69 deaths so far. Communicating with my physician colleagues at the hospitals, they're already filling up pretty good. I think university has about 40 inpatients that are on ventilators and a few that are on ECMO, which is the extracorporeal oxygenation, a little scary. And the other hospitals, I'm sure, are seeing similar numbers. The testing updates that I was sharing, thinking I was talking to people earlier, are that the state has stopped testing for COVID acutely. The only available testing that we have, at least in Denver, is through a few urgent cares, one of which is including the Stride urgent care here in town and some of the other front range locations. I got one test from LabCorp. That was it. No more from Quest or the other ones. I do have antibody tests that I will have available in the near future. These will be probably next Wednesday. I'll start doing those. And those will be for individuals that have had a suspected case or at least 2 weeks out from the illness and are wanting to see if they've got immunity to COVID. I think that'd be a really useful test. Unfortunately, it's a little bit expensive. I think it's around $200, although I do understand that there may be an ability for us to do this in a research mode if you sign up for it, and it could be either free or very discounted. So I'll let you know more on that. All of that's going to be posted on my website for you guys in terms of when it's available and costs, all that kind of fun stuff. And I'll do that here in the office for our patients, and I think results will be within 2 to 3 days. And the really nice thing is you'll be able to tell your loved ones that you've got immunity, or people at work that you've got immunity, and that you can safely return without potentially getting an infection. One question we get is, okay, if I have antibodies and I'm shown to have some protection here, how long will it last? I think, we hope, long term, but it could mutate in 6 months to a year, just like the flu does, and it may confer only partial immunity. So we're hopeful that we don't see any crazy mutations of this virus and have to worry about giving a shot every year like we do with the flu to protect individuals. The rapid tests, I'm hopeful will be available to me here personally at the office, and that I won't have to swab people and then wait 3 days for LabCorp requests to run that. So I'm trying to get answers on that. Unfortunately, the state, no one is giving us a heads up in terms of where these tests are, where they are in terms of coming down the pipeline to us for availability. And I think it's still important for us to identify acute positives so that we can be more diligent about isolating those, particularly those that are kind of asymptomatic and don't know that they're floating around with this virus. So keep you posted on that as well. Other things, preventative strategies. I just finished a document that summarizes my recommendations on things that can help improve your immune function and hopefully provide some layer of protection in terms of getting it, and some layer of protection in terms of you developing acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is what lands people in the hospital and what ends up killing them, or potentially creating long-term pulmonary fibrosis if they get out of the hospital. So many concerns in regards to the long-term effects of the inflammatory response related to COVID. So the more we can do to protect ourselves, the better off we'll be. And again, I think in terms of lifestyle, trying to get plenty of sleep, 8 to 10 hours, maintaining mindful-based activities, whether it's meditation, yoga, hiking, sound therapy, etc. I think that will be beneficial to you on multiple levels to prevent this from manifesting. I kind of consider some of our preventative strategies like taking a hike, in the springtime, like we are now, and in our backpack we've got multiple layers. We've got our fleece, we've got our polypro, we've got our down jacket and rain jacket and all that kind of good stuff. And I think if we look at this from the standpoint of, okay, I'm going to add in multiple layers, and one of those layers could be the mindfulness, the other one could be healthy nutrition, the other one is getting out and getting that exercise, the other is social isolation, and then supplementation. So by adding in these layers of protection, we're going to hopefully find ourselves less vulnerable to succumbing to the severe element of ARDS and hospitalization. The stats now are pretty concerning that 50 to 70% of us are going to catch this, and I wouldn't be surprised if I get it with all my exposures. They're likely going to be coming up as people come in to see me down the road. I am being very cautious, wearing an N95 when I see people and whatnot, but things could still happen. So cross our fingers there. Speaking of masks, I do feel that masks are beneficial, and I mentioned that even back in my first January newsletter called Pandemic Preparedness. I think it was irresponsible of the government to say not to wear masks. I think they were just trying to save masks for providers, which I understand, but they should have been truthful and said, okay, go easy on the mask people, buy 1 or 2 for your household or whatever you need as a bare minimum, but don't go buy a box off of Amazon. So we're seeing more evidence that it's airborne, aerosolized, that it can actually float out of a hospital room into the hallway. Therefore, it can float out of a bedroom into a hallway. Therefore, if you're in your grocery store and you're shopping, you don't have a mask on, you could pick it up as well. So scary stuff, but I think that even wearing a homemade cloth mask, whether it's the bandana version or sewing something creative on your own, can be helpful. And if I'm actually able to get more surgical masks, I'm totally happy sharing those with our patients here for when they go to the store. But in the meantime, try to make your own, and then recognize that the mask isn't 100%. You still got to be very good about hand washing what you touch, cleaning your groceries as you come in from the grocery store so that you don't contaminate your counters and contaminate your hands again from grocery handlers, etc. So be cautious with that. Other things preventatively, I made a short list of supplements, and one of my favorites is vitamin D. I think most of you are on that. Now, if you're not on vitamin D, just go out and lay in the spring sunshine and do that for a good half an hour to an hour, and you'll crank it up really nicely. So it's a nice natural way to bring it up. Best way is full nakedness, so enjoy that. Just don't scare your neighbors. And if you're going to take vitamin D orally, I recommend 5,000 international units. I'm all for the keeping your levels above 50 on your vitamin D levels. A lot of docs are just recommending 1 to 2,000 IUs. I think that's kind of pissing in the wind. So go for the 5,000 plus, particularly at this time. Other things that I've mentioned in this document on the homepage are vitamin C, a couple grams a day. Of course, you can get a lot of that nutritionally through veggies and whatnot, and fruits, of course. doing an immune support that may have a beta glucan in it, such as our immunotonics, immune essentials. Mushrooms actually have a lot of beta glucans, so reishi, cordyceps are great. Chaga mushroom, which a lot of people make tea out of, is a great support as well. There's some really cool things that have come out in regards to melatonin, and as we age, our melatonin levels drop quite a bit dramatically, even in our 50s and later, and we think that this could be correlated with the increased prevalence of acute respiratory distress syndrome in the elderly. So strongly recommend that those of you that are old like me take at least 3 milligrams of melatonin nightly, and if it makes you a little drowsy, just hit it with some green tea or coffee in the morning. And speaking of which, green tea and coffee also have polyphenols, which are helpful to create some antioxidant benefit and reduce inflammation that could lead to preventing ARDS as well. So much of this is really common sense nutritional advice, but we're just kind of amping up our diligence in terms of how big we go with this. Other things, zinc, of course, has been a big player for the common cold, but may also play a role in terms of preventing this particular RNA virus from entering our cells. So I recommend a zinc dose of about 20 milligrams as a daily dose, and then bumping that to as high as 80 milligrams if you do get sick. Basic multivitamin is always a good idea just to support you as well. And there's additional things we can consider, which I put in as kind of a advanced supplementation for those of you that want to go a little bit bigger. They can be added in, and they include quercetin, resveratrol, N-acetylcysteine, curcumin, astragalus, garlic, elderberry, and then even like silvercillin spray I think could be helpful for people that have a sore throat. And we've got a lot of these here in the office, but you can get them at Whole Foods or online in a lot of cases. But download that PDF and you can check out what I've recommended in there. Now, is this purely just my opinion as a functional medicine doc? No, of course not. I've got a ton of articles that I've posted on a Google Drive, which you can download and do all your own diligence on this and tell me if I'm crazy or not. That link is also in that first part of the document there. So look at that. Feel free to read the evidence on beta-glucans, on melatonin, etc. And I think most of you will see the logic in this. And sure, it would be nice to do a trial of 100,000 patients on a beta-glucan with a randomized controlled placebo, but not going to happen, and we don't have time to wait for that. So keep that in mind as well. And plus, you're not going to have a drug company that's going to invest in a melatonin study or a beta-glucan or a mushroom study, right? So those are tips on supplementation, and yeah, definitely encourage you to read through that. Shout out to Jonathan Goldman, who's here watching as well. And Jonathan's the author of, he's a world famous sound healer, and has some great music you may enjoy listening to help you relax and get into that mindful space. But one of his really great recent books is called The Humming Effect, and we've recently discovered that humming, as well as I assume singing and chanting, etc., helps improve our nitric oxide release in our sinuses and our airways, which can then help in terms of vasodilating, improving lymphatic flow and immune function. So think of that, whether it's humming your favorite tune or chanting your favorite mantra, I think that can be helpful to keep you out of trouble as well. Deep breathing during meditation is always helpful too, and I've mentioned that last week as well. Other things, in terms of forecasting this, I think Colorado is going to be peaking towards the end of April, and that means we're probably not going to come down off the curve until the end of May or early June. So I'd be surprised if we're really going to let off on the restrictions for us returning to work until June or maybe even July. It's so hard to predict at this point. So we have to kind of wrap our head around the fact that we may be stuck isolating for quite a bit longer until we see where this is going. The scariness of 100,000 to 240,000 people dying here in the country is very worrisome. I think most of the deaths are still out in New York, and I hope they can get control of what's happening there. But given the high density of the population, and maybe even, again, because of its airborne nature and people living in condo complexes with HVACs, which may have some shared flow amongst rooms, is concerning. So I think there's a lot of public health things that need to be looked at in these higher density buildings that are out there in the community. I have some additional links I'll put on the website for you guys, and I think that's got it for my short little update today. If anybody wants to go ahead and unmute and ask any questions they may have, I'm happy to do my best fielding it. I'm not going to be able to answer every question, but I'll try to. And you can just unmute yourself and shoot away. Jonathan, here.
Hi, Fred. So, hello, everyone. A real quick question. My wife took it upon herself to go shopping today, which was a frightening thing when you get here. And so we've been basically trying to clean the various articles that we've had for a while. And we've got a sink full of like celery and peppers and stuff like that. And I just don't know. We've got some ingredients to that we use to clean the outer layers. But for this stuff, I don't know. I made a hydrogen peroxide mix with some other stuff, and I think that might possibly work, but not be really digestible. Any thoughts about like goods such as apples, tomatoes, celery, whatnot, on how to clean that?
Yeah, I think the peroxide is a great idea, and they're using a peroxide mist to actually clean mass in New York City, like 80,000 a pop, 80,000 mass at a time, which is a pretty impressive technology. And I think I'd use peroxide. The other one we could consider, which I remember from my days in Nepal, is iodine. Actually, a dilute iodine solution could work. The problem is it can give a metallic taste to the food, so I'd probably say that would be my plan B. And then if anybody else has any articles or videos that are legitimate and they want to share, I'd be happy to post that and put it on the website and share it with everybody too. But great question, Jonathan. Yeah, and I think the only other thing we can do is just leave it out on the counter for a while. I think that ultraviolet sterilization is an option. I actually ordered an ultraviolet sterilizing lamp for about $200 to do that exact job. And what I would do is I'd lay out my veggies and my fruits on the counter with this light, which is kind of probably about a foot long tubular light over the top of it. Let it run for whatever the prescribed amount of time is. I think it's 15 minutes, maybe rotate it around, and then hopefully that would clear it of potential viruses too. I think
what would happen if you put it in the sunlight?
I think that's helpful too, and I've definitely encouraged people to do that with their masks. I think that putting in an ultraviolet light can, even if it's on a windowsill, provide some level of sterilization. So yeah, do that if you're leaving it out for a while. And then for other things like masks, we could also get a spray bottle, put rubbing alcohol in it, and mist your mask with that to clean it as well. So different strategies for different things that we're trying to clear up here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any others? Let's see here. I'm just kind of going through the pages of people. Yeah, we got a lot of people on today. That's great. And then, yeah, go ahead and unmute and just ask me if you want. I'm not real good at finding these little raise hand icon things. Oh, there we go. Judith, you've got something. Okay, let me unmute you. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm
How are you?
unmuted. Wow. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. How are you doing?
Okay, yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I'm developing agoraphobia, but
Right?
I want to talk a little bit to what Jonathan said. I saw somewhere, some other doc, when I got my groceries yesterday, I washed all my fruit and vegetables in just hot water and soap, and then I
Mm-hmm.
put them all in my dishwasher, just to dry, not to wash again, just to.
Oh,
And then the second part of what I had learned is that anything you then cook is going to be okay. Uh,
mm-hmm.
so anything that's normally frozen wouldn't be. Everything else that wasn't that I didn't have to put in the refrigerator right away, I just left in shopping bags outside for 72 hours. And
Great,
actually,
great.
that's what I'm doing with my mail too. I'm just putting it in
Mm-hmm.
a shopping bag, and I'm not opening it up for 3 more days. And things like cottage cheese, I then washed down with a Clorox wipe or sprayed it.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And I like that idea of using your washer as a drying rack. And I think as a bare minimum, yeah, running water over our food for a good minute or two should hopefully rinse those things off. And if it's not a soap that's going to leave an aftertaste, that would be fine. But I think if you've got peroxide, that would be an easy one to work with and
Yeah.
definitely give you stability. And then, yeah, of course, if you can boil it, or peel it, then we're totally fine. Or if we're cooking it, we're going to kill whatever. Be careful about throwing stuff in the freezer. I have no idea if you forget to wipe it off before you throw it in the freezer, how long the virus can last cryogenically. So keep that in mind too.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Oh, absolutely. Going to keep it going for you guys. So as long as there's interest.
Hey, Fred, there's a chat comment from Stacy. If you can find that chat box down at the bottom there.
Oh, yeah.
Read her comment.
Okay. Looking forward here. Let's see. Yeah, it's not showing up on my end. Can you read it to me, or Stacy, you want to read it to me? That's so weird. I don't see it.
Sure. I'll read it to you. So I'll just read it straight up. I'm on day 15 presumptive positive with COVID-19. I haven't been able to get a test, and I've improved a lot, but I'm still struggling with a lot of fatigue, intermittent dry cough, and some dizziness and lightheadedness when I stand up.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying this whole time to get a test, but haven't been able to because I haven't had shortness of breath.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really curious about this antibody test. I don't have a primary care provider. I've been going through Denver Health's nurse callback lines, and I'm just wondering how I can get my hands on any kind of test, especially an antibody test, since I'm 15 days out. It would be great to know if I'm immune to this thing.
We should be able to do that for you as long as I've got enough kits and actually show up. If you want to email our office at revmdoffice@gmail.com and just tell them you'd like to do it, I'll start a running list for that. And we'll do it here in the office. I think if you're 2 weeks out, we may even want to wait an additional week just to give yourself a chance to generate more antibodies. And then I think the important thing for you in terms of energy is gradually increasing your exercise, maintaining good caloric intake. Maybe consider adding in things like NAD, which is a supplement which helps with mitochondrial function that can get pretty impaired with a viral infection. CoQ10 is another good one to add in there. And then resting, as much as you need. It's just going to take a while to recover from this.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the level of fatigue I feel some days. Even though so many of my other symptoms have gone away, the fatigue has really just taken over.
Oh, I'm sure. And I think just recognizing that, it could be another couple of weeks before you feel like a normal human being and resting and not pushing yourself is going to be the key component there. And if you've got immune support, keep that going, because we want to still take down whatever residual virus could be floating around in you. They're finding that some people may shed the virus in their stool actually for up to 30 days. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
Which is why there's actually some people that are considering doing a stool-based test to see if people have had it, rather than torturing them with the swab up the nose. You can just give them a little cup of special stuff there. So
Yeah,
well,
that makes sense.
yeah. Well, hope you feel better.
Thank you so
And
much. I appreciate it.
yeah, holler at us if you need more feedback on things.
Okay, will do.
Let's see. Who else have we got here? Brian, how are you doing? Hopefully he's alive there. We got Don on here. Let's see. Peter, how are you doing?
Great. I just sent the message that I don't know if there's anybody else here who's up in Eagle County, but we had a very high rate.
Oops, lost you there. Hold on.
He also put a note there on the.
Oh,
Zoom chat.
there we go. Okay,
And,
sorry, Peter. You were saying you had a high rate up there, and
it was fairly restrictive on the testing up until Monday.
mm-hmm.
And there's a list of about 10 symptoms now. If you have any of them, Eagle County is authorizing tests up here. So I got tested yesterday. It's pretty easy to get. So if anybody else is up in Eagle County, it's pretty easy. Just wanted to let you know.
Much easier up there than down here. Yeah, it's still a struggle down here. It's still some long lines, and the turnaround time's 3 to 4 days. It's interesting how it's more readily available up there. Well, hopefully yours is negative, Peter, and we'll wait and see. Are they going to tell you tomorrow, do you think, or how's it
They
look?
said it could be 2 to 10 days.
2 to 10 days. That's a pretty large.
Quite a range.
It's like the plumber, you know. We'll be there between 8 and 5.
Right.
Oh man. All right. Okay. Anybody else? Let me see.
Hi, Fred. This is Brian. Yeah, we're doing fine.
Good. Good.
We can't go skiing, but our roads have cleared up a bit, not muddy, so we're out going like 3K, 6K a day.
Oh, that's great.
So,
good for you guys.
Yeah. So that's been good to get in a routine of physical therapy on it. So
Good.
anyway, we're doing good.
Keep that up. Brian's up in Fraser area near Winter Park, so he's got a little more hiking availability than I do here. The Lowry neighborhood's a little boring. Getting tired of that.
We have to watch out for the coyotes, though.
Yeah, exactly. I see Debbie on here. Deb, how are you doing? I just unmuted you there.
Yeah, well, I have been struggling a little bit. You know, we went up and had a beautiful ski weekend up in Breckenridge for a long weekend of Mardi Gras. And 5 days later, I got sick, sore throat, fever, conjunctivitis, dry cough, and all of that. And then a week later, John got the symptoms too. So we do believe we had it. Of course, we could not get any testing done. So I really want to get this antibody test to see if, you know, if I'm safe to be out in public and start doing some of my neurofeedback and ketamine assisted therapy for people.
Yeah, exactly. If you can't find it locally there in Boulder, just holler. And
Yeah, no, I'm hollering.
Yeah, so we'll put you on the
You're
list
only
too.
one.
Just email us.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to have a whole lot. I've probably got 5 on my list right now that I'm thinking of, and I'm supposed to get at least 30 kits, so we should have plenty.
That would be great. I would love that. And I had this profound healing in the fall with exosomes, and I want to talk to you about that and see if you can do another round of that for me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're doing some exosome stem cell therapies here, so I can talk to you about that later.
Yeah,
for sure.
Would love that. Would love that. I'm missing you. Now we miss ski season together. Darn it.
I know. Well, hopefully next season won't be a bust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Who else have I got here? Susan, I'll put you on the spot. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm, as we talked about, wondering if I had it also, but I'm feeling much better. Doing all my sessions by video still. Yep.
Great. Well, keep up the good work.
Thanks,
Susan's a psychiatrist, so we got a few mental health providers on here, and she's doing all virtual, which is great to be able to maintain that kind of care for people that are obviously really stressed out this time. Very good. Anybody else? Let's see who else we got in here. I see Carolyn. How are you doing, Carolyn? Took you off mute. Maybe didn't work.
Yeah, I think I had to unmute myself.
There you go. You doing okay?
Yep, we're fine.
Good. Great to see you on here too.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, let's call it a session, and I will post this hopefully tonight if I'm able to get it off my computer, upload it to YouTube, etc. And I'm still figuring out the ropes with Zoom, so my apologies for that little initial delay. I thought everybody was on, but didn't see that little tiny little thing in my upper corner that I needed to actually activate the session, which is kind of silly because I'd already hit start meeting. You assumed it would start. So I apologize, and wishing all of you great health, and that you stay clear of this. If you do unfortunately come down with it, don't freak out. Stay calm. Do everything you can to relax and support your health, and then follow some of my guidelines that I have, and feel free to reach out if things are hitting the fan. So take care, and we'll see you next Wednesday, 3 o'clock. Namaste. Thanks again.
Thanks, Dr. Grover. This is Ann.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Will do.